the back with necessary, or that one day he recalled where President Bush handed off his coat to someone he thought was cold, smiled, and came into the congregation to worship, and no doubt said a hello to everyone he passed. Just as you saw President Bush, the 43rd today, he is now the patriarch of this dynastic power of a family across our nation. It was interesting to watch him throughout the course of the events, sometimes laughing, sometimes singing, sometimes tapping his foot, often crying or reaching over for the hand of his brother. At the end, he was cheering and marveling at the sound of the choir and the rest singing "Glory, Glory, Hallelujah" before they walked out of that church today, and he gave handshakes and waves to all in attendance. He loved his father, and they shared a lot of moments maybe we'll never learn about as president and father president, but certainly much of it was on much public display, and today we saw them together for the last time. Les Shorba is here. He worked as the special assistant for presidential personnel all 4 years President Bush 41 was in office. Lives around the corner from the church here. Saw George Herbert Walker Bush and his family here on a regular basis. This day, your thoughts on it?
A very powerful service, personal, certainly less formal than yesterday. But very warm and very loving. I was struck with 1 Corinthians chapter 13, faith, hope, love, and the greatest of these is love. And the Apostle Paul wrote those words, but George Herbert Walker Bush lived and modeled those words of love for so many people. And that's what really struck me with the service today.
I enjoy watching the family. Everyone deals with grief differently. Few of us has ever dealt with 7 days of grief in the way that this family will, but they're a very strong bunch up front, if also very emotional, the lot of them.
Yeah, this is an emotional family. I think the country knows how close they are. They're also very, very emotional, and you can see that, and that's because of the closeness and the intimacy and the relationships they have with each other. And that's a powerful model for all of us as Americans and those of us who, of course, have families. But I just was really moved by just the president's, his design of this service. It was vintage 41, right? It wasn't about him. It was about his family. It was about his friends. And at the end of the day, it was about the Creator God who plucked him out of that ocean and saved him and gave him purpose in his life. And you saw that when we sang "Glory, Glory, Hallelujah." It was as if he was pointing to the one who saved him and gave him purpose in this magnificent life that he led.
Brad Blakeman is also with us. He served President Bush the 41st as both president and vice president, and was a member of President George W. Bush's senior staff. Was also with the Bush family this week in Washington and spent a lot of time with them. Brad, I think my first question for you is, how have they been holding up? You've been with them through it all.
Well, they've been holding up great, and I had time to spend some time with the President and Mrs. Bush at Blair House, and they were pretty instructive in telling everybody this is a celebration of life. 94 years, a magnificent public servant, a great father, a good friend to all. So this is not a time to mourn, this is a time to celebrate a great life. And he lived his life just as he preached to others. Family, service, faith, honor, duty, country. That was George Bush in life. That's the legacy he leaves, and that's the challenge for us to follow in his footsteps.
Today, during today's service, I wondered if there was a moment that struck you, as so many did, both of us.
I think the country music. Music was a big part of President George H.W. Bush's life, and his family and friends have said he wasn't a very good singer, but it was a point of relaxation and a point for him to escape. Loved country music, I think because of the patriotism of country music and the upbeatness of country music. And the people who performed today were the people he loved as vice president and president and established a relationship with.
Reba, it's my understanding, though I didn't realize before, is a longtime friend, and
yes.
More than one person has said he loved to hear Reba sing.
He certainly did, but one thing struck me today as we reached the final part of his journey. He's going to take a train trip. Well, he took a train trip almost exactly the same as we're going to witness shortly when he opened his library on November 6th in 1997. And he came down to his library opening in a train full of family and friends and dignitaries, but he lectured us, those of us who were on the opening committee of his library. I don't want any hoopla. We're going to have hoopla the next day when we open, but the train's going to come, I'm going to get out, and we're going to have the big celebration the next day. And after he lectured us and got off the phone, we all turned to each other and said, there's going to be hoopla. And we did. We had an arrival ceremony. His son was the governor. We had marching bands. We had the cadets from the University of Texas A&M. We had College Station residents come out, and we must have had 7,500 people out there, and bands. It was fantastic. And then after the ceremony, he called us up to his office at the college, and he said, that was a lot of hoopla. But he understood how important it was for the community to welcome him, and because it was just as important for them as it was to him.
Reverend Levinson said today, repeatedly, through the homily and otherwise, we adore you. And here in this place that he knew so well, where he came to worship with his family, where he was sent off on a chilly, overcast day, that adoration was really heartfelt and pervasive. And it will follow him on the train ride to Aggieland. We'll continue to celebrate the life and times of George Herbert Walker Bush, and in a bit, update you on the news of the day. Our coverage from Houston continues in just a moment.